This is the Louie T Network. You are now officially in the lab room. It's that time again. It's that time again to go hard in the off season, cause we trying to win. We gon' go so hard, we don't take no days off. Hopefully one day it's all gonna pay off.
Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to the 2017 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series, where your man Louie T aims to break down all 32 teams in the National Football League's 2017 NFL Draft using our baseball grading scale: single, double, triple, home run. There are no strikeouts here in the Draft Wrap-Up Series. We cannot tell how these players are going to pan out, and I don't want to discount any of these young men before they get their chance in the National Football League. And so we'll get a score for each and every single pick made by X said team in the draft. We'll apply bonuses when necessary, get an aggregate score, divide by the number of picks, which will then yield us an overall grade for that team's draft. We'll then move on to the next team in the series picked by you. That's right, you, the viewer out there, are in total control, as this is the up format. You guys are in total control by simply being the first to leave a comment in the comment section of this and future videos in this series stating two things: the phrase next and the team you'd like to see next. It's really simple. Some examples: Cardinals next, Cards next, Arizona next, Arizona next, Cards. You get the picture. Don't be too wordy. No need for the entire team's name. That takes too long. Just get the team's nickname, Cards, Cardinals, next, in the comment section. You get the drift. That's how you get in first. It's been a very efficient process thus far. A lot of fast entries. So if you want to get your team up next, if they haven't been done already, make sure that you are subscribed to the Louie T Network. In addition to that, make sure you turn on your notifications, not only on Twitter, but also on YouTube. If you're not following me on Twitter, now would be a good time to do so. In the lab room is the Twitter handle. So let's go on to the next team in the series picked by you, the viewers. The Arizona Cardinals, a team that took a step back last year, had some injuries. Carson Palmer wasn't the guy that we've seen in the past. And we know now that he's probably on the decline in his career. A lot of people thought the Cardinals would be looking quarterback in this particular draft. That was not the case. Steve Keim and company decided to go in a different direction. However, this is still a really quality draft here put forth by the Arizona Cardinals. Let's jump into what they were able to do, and let's see if this is a good enough draft in addition to whatever moves they made in the offseason. And maybe guys just playing better and being more comfortable after being in the league for a year. Now, some guys perform a little bit better. We'll see what happens. Maybe this team is able to climb back into the thick of things in the NFC West division. We start with their first round selection, 13th overall, Temple edge rusher Haason Reddick is the selection. Edge rusher, linebacker. This guy can do a little bit of everything, which makes him such a diabolical player here in the first round. A guy that I wanted my Washington Redskins to select with their first round selection. He did not make it to the 17th overall selection, as the Arizona Cardinals took him off the board at 13. And I've already broken him down along with a number of other guys, so I'm not going to break him down here. If you want a thorough breakdown of Haason Reddick and some other guys that I was able to get to prior to the draft taking place, go to my playlist, Draft Prospects 101 Series 2017 NFL Draft Prospects 101 Series, in the playlist section on the Louie T Network. All the players that I was able to get to, including Haason Reddick, there in that playlist for your enjoyment. But I'll say this about Haason Reddick. To me, he was one of those guys that steadily climbed up the draft board. As the process started, he put in work. As the process progressed, he put in more work and positioned himself to become a first-round pick. When this whole process got started, this guy was a third-round selection, maybe a fringe second-rounder. He went from a fringe second-rounder to a mid-second-rounder to a early second-round pick, all the way to the midpoint of the first round. And that was all because this guy worked throughout the entire process. As you put on the tape and you watch this guy in person, and a lot of these evaluators got to do that at some of these games, they started to see just how good and how athletically gifted this guy was. And I was a huge Haason Reddick fan. The more and more I watched him, the more and more I became sold as to what this guy would translate to at the next level. Whether you asked him to stick his hand in the dirt as a defensive end in pass rushing situations, you ask him to stand up in a 2-point stance, or you put him at linebacker, he can make plays. That's what he did at Temple, whether he was chasing quarterbacks, chasing running backs, setting a physical edge in the running game, running sideline to sideline, you name it, he did it. And this is why I think the Cardinals felt compelled, I should say, to take this guy at number 13 overall. And I think he's the guy that they need in their defense. Another playmaker. You lose some guys defensively. Calais Campbell comes to mind. You lose Tony Jefferson. These are all guys that made this defense one of the better defenses over the last few years. You need to replenish some of the guys that you lost. I always thought that Daryl Washington was a huge part of your defense when he was there. This defense has been good, but to me hasn't been the same. And we could go back to Todd Bowles and when he left for New York to be the head coach of the Jets. But nonetheless, this is a Daryl Washington type of player right here. And I think this is the type of guy that can come in and really do some big things for you in this defense with Becher. This is the type of guy that I think you move around and use as a chess piece. And I really love what Haason Reddick brings to the table in the first round, 13th overall selection. Haason Reddick out of Temple. Is it all? He's hit deep. Out of it. It's a home run for the Arizona Cardinals in the first round, taking edge rusher / linebacker out of Temple, Haason Reddick, with their first round selection. And they did more damage early in the second round, moving up and taking Washington defensive back Budda Baker with their second round pick, 36th overall. And this was a phenomenal selection. A guy that, as I put on the tape, and I didn't know a lot about Budda Baker. There were so many good football players at Washington. He kind of slipped under the radar for me. And there were a number of guys that I was watching on that Washington Huskies defense. And he was hard to ignore, but somehow I managed to not know who the hell he was until I put on the tape. Now, I had heard a lot of people talking about this guy and what he brought to the table, but I wasn't really aware of what he brought to the table until I put on the tape. And I'm here to tell you, I was impressed. Let's start with his pros. 5'10", 195. He's an explosive athlete. Explosive athleticism is the first pro. 4.45 540 for this guy. 3-cone and 20-yard shuttles were among the best at the safety position at the combine, which just gives you a little insight as to how quick this guy is in short spaces. His explosion is dynamic. He closes the gap on ball carriers so quickly. I mean, he comes downhill with some serious fury and very, very fast in the blink of an eye. Speaking of which, next pro, closing burst. My goodness, this guy is a blur on the screen at times. I love watching guys play the way that he does. He reminds me a lot of Bob Sanders, how he comes down, how physical he's looking to be, how fast he is. And then he's a smaller stature guy too, much like Bob Sanders was. So you worry about that a little bit. And with the physical style of football that he plays, how long will he be able to last? I tell you what though, his closing burst is one of the best I've seen thus far in this draft. He's got a high-powered motor, man. When this guy's on the field, he's going 110 miles an hour nonstop. He's like a little Tasmanian devil. He's looking to get to the football at all costs. And like I said, this guy is going balls to the wall at all times, and I absolutely love it. Physicality. One thing you can't say about Budda Baker is he's soft. This is a guy that's looking to come up and hit you. This is a guy that's going to get you on the ground by hook or by crook. I've seen him come up, lay guys out. I've seen him put a shoulder in the guys. I've seen him come up, form tackle, wrap up, get a guy on the ground. I've seen him shoestring guys. I've seen him do whatever it takes to get guys on the ground. But one thing's for sure, he's coming with a level of physicality that if you don't match, you will lose on that given snap. Great tackler. I watched this guy run around the field, and it just seems that no matter how fast he's coming, how out of control he may seem to be, he tends to get guys on the ground. Now, every now and again, he'll be a little bit too OC, and he'll run past the play a little bit. But for the most part, when he gets his hands on a ball carrier, they go down, and that's a luxury that a lot of teams would love to have at the safety position, in the slot. You need guys who are willing to come up, and not only willing, but able to come up and be sure tacklers in the slot, which is what I think Budda Baker is at the next level. I don't know if there are any better in this draft at being a sure tackler than Budda Baker. He's really good at getting guys on the ground. Outstanding blitzer in the slot. This is a guy that played a lot of slot football, okay? Does a really good job in the slot of shadowing receivers, mirroring them. Really good job of taking away some of the quarterback's reads. But also, I think he does a great job of blitzing, coming up, disguising some things around the line of scrimmage, timing up blitzes, getting in the backfield. Doesn't matter. Run blitz, going after the quarterback. I think he does an equally good job of doing both of those things, coming after the opposing team. Again, one of those guys that will blitz off the opposite side of the play, off the backside, will get to the ball carrier to the front side of the play, who has no idea Budda Baker's coming from behind as he blitzes, times it up perfectly. Next thing you know, it's a no-yard gain because he came from the backside of the play and made the play. So this guy, to me, is an outstanding blitzer from the slot. Times it up well, disguises it well, does a lot of good things from the slot, does his best work, if you ask me, from the slot. Keys quarterback's eyes and has good route recognition. This is one of those guys that if he could catch, he probably would have walked away with double-digit interceptions in his career at UW. I mean, just last year alone, I think this guy might have dropped about 5 or 6. But that just lets you know how many times he found himself in a position to make plays on the football. Does a really good job of keying quarterback's eyes. He's very nosy. You can manipulate him because he's a very nosy defender, but a lot of times his eyes don't lie, and the quarterback's eyes will take him to the football. If you don't deceive him, if you don't have any form of deception as a quarterback, and you are staring down your target, Budda Baker will beat you to the punch and I won't say make you pay, but he'll scare the living daylights out of you. That's for sure. He's versatile. All right, that's the final pro. A guy that can play the safety position, a guy that can play in the slot, a guy that can play down, I think, as a nickel defender, as a nickel linebacker, potentially on third down situations where you just want a defender underneath, keying quarterback's eyes down in the hook zone or up around the line of scrimmage, running with some crossers and some drag routes, shallow crossers. He's that guy in the box as a nickel defender, as a nickel linebacker, as a slot guy, as a blitzer, as a safety, as a run defender. Against the pass, he does everything well. A really versatile and solid piece. Again, another one of these guys, much like Haason Reddick, that can do multiple things. Another chess piece on a defense that's full of chess pieces as it is. This is another guy that seems like a clone of what you already have in the Honey Badger, Tyrann Mathieu. So this is another one of those guys that I feel like you can move around and do some things with and have him be a big asset to your defense as you move on to his cons. First things first, his size, 5'10", 195. I told you he reminds me a lot of Bob Sanders in the way that he approaches the game with his level of physicality. Those guys don't tend to last long in this league. When you play with the level of physicality that a Budda Baker plays with, a lot of times you will find yourself getting nicked up, bruised up. Again, a guy that just plays the game very physically with a little bit of a reckless abandon, which I like. But again, how long can you sustain that being 5'10", $195? So his size is a concern, but only if you allow it to be. He can't catch. That's the next pro. This is a guy that, like I said before, I think he might have ended up with about a good 5 or 6 career interceptions, which isn't bad. But if you see all the opportunities that he had to pick off passes, you would say, man, if only Budda could catch. Only Budda could catch. Budda. Ha, ha. You bring in that. Budda. If he could only catch the ball. Budda Baker would have been a guy with about 11, 12 career INTs, at least 5 or 6 at UW last year, okay, if he could catch the ball, but he couldn't. And I don't think he has natural hands, and that's something that I think may plague him throughout his career. We'll see. Maybe he'll get on the jugs machine and improve that, but right now, he's not the guy for the job. He's not the man for the job when you're talking about catching the ball. And he can be OC at times. Look, I'm not going to kill him for this because, again, I think he gets a lot of guys on the ground, but he will overrun a play. He will be the type of guy that will come up so aggressively, and then the ball carrier will stick his foot in the ground, give him a fake to the outside, cut in on him, and he'll go flying by. He can be OC at times, but again, I'm not going to scale this guy back. I think he is one of those guys, balls to the wall, coming up aggressively. I don't want to take that away from him because that's part of what makes him who he is as a football player. But yes, he will overrun some things. Yes, he will be out of control at times. His eyes sometimes can lead him astray at times. But again, this is all part of the DNA makeup that makes Budda Baker a big-time playmaker potentially at the next level. So in the second round, 36 overall selection, Washington defensive back, Budda Baker. Is it on? He's hit deep. You can put him on the board. Yes, it's a home run. Back-to-back jacks for the Arizona Cardinals in the first 2 rounds. And if you're going to spend picks to move up in the draft, this is the type of guy that you spend picks to move up to go and get a guy like Budda Baker. Love this selection. Gives you a little bit of insurance in case Tyrann Mathieu can't stay healthy. I think this is another one of those guys that you move around, do a lot of different things with that will help you alleviate some injuries if you were to have those occur again in 2017. You move to the next selection, 3rd round, 98th overall selection. Grambling State wide receiver Chad Williams is the selection. Seems like the Cardinals like to do this. Take a 3rd or a 4th round flyer on a guy, whether it's the L.A.B speedster you took last year, or it's Sheriff John Brown a couple of years ago. This team loves the smaller school guys. I want to say John Brown was from like Pittsburgh State. So they love these smaller school guys that they think can come in and really have an impact. And they've done a really good job of identifying these smaller school receivers and their talents and bringing them into Arizona and having them fit in what they do. And I think they look at Chad Williams. They had to get rid of a big receiver that they really liked in Michael Floyd because of the off-the-field issues. Didn't have a strong season last year. You couple that with all of the miscues off the field, and they had enough. So you send him away, and you're looking for a guy. Remember, Larry Fitzgerald, at some point, he's going to say enough's enough. We don't know when that is. It could be this end of this year. It could be the end of next season. Whenever the case may be, you want to be prepared, and a guy like Chad Williams you think can come in and start to learn, and maybe you pass the mantle to another guy, and maybe this is the guy here. Let's talk about him. 6'1", 204 is where we start. Size and physicality is the first pros. That 6'1", 204, that's the prototypical size for an NFL wide receiver now. Like I said, they're getting bigger, they're getting stronger, they're getting faster. To me, he's the definition of what an NFL receiver is now. Bigger, stronger, faster. 6'1", check. 204, 21 reps of 225. Check on the physicality. Bigger, stronger. Okay, check, check. Faster. That's the next pro. Athleticism. The guy was a high jumper in high school. 4.37 40. So that explosion, that explosiveness, you see it on tape now. He's a build-up speed guy. He's not a guy that's going to take 3 steps and be off and running with the best of them. But you got guys on your team that do that already, that are speedsters that I've already mentioned. So he's going to fit right in with them. He's a long distance guy. You let him build up some speed. He can run by defenders. You saw that on tape a little bit. And he's a guy that can catch it after, run after the catch. You hit him in stride on a slant. And that's when you really see that 4.37 speed really start to take effect. Is when he catches the football, doesn't have to break stride, has some space in front of him. He's one of those guys that can separate and lead defenders in his wake. Solid hands and route runner. I think he runs really solid routes. I think he can be better as a route runner, but I thought he did some good things as a route runner. I watched him eat up the Arizona Wildcats for like 11 catches 100 and some odd yards. I mean, he went to work on those boys, ran a cute in and out route right around the goal line, tackled at the 1 yard line. He's a quality route runner. Will catch the football with his hands. Next pro, will high point the football. I saw him on tape go up, climb the ladder again. They were talking about a high school high jumper here. We'll go up and climb the ladder, extend for the football with strong hands, and pluck the ball out of the air. So he's one of those guys you throw a 50-50 ball up to, he may come down with it. And also will catch it in traffic. That's the next pro. Again, another one of these guys that will show some toughness over the middle of the field. Will go and do the dirty work over the middle of the field and catch the football in traffic, knowing that he's going to probably get hit while catching the football. I think he does a really good job of boxing out defenders with his body. He does a really good job of posting up defenders, keeping them away from the football. It's another one of those things where you're a big, physical, strong guy, got a nice frame on you like he does. You use that to your advantage. Play keep away from defenders by putting your body in between them and the football and then making a play. And that's part of that catching in traffic dynamic that I referenced just a few seconds ago. So this is a guy that does a lot of good things while making plays at Grambling State. Dominated the last 2 years, 154 catches, 2,349 yards, and 21 scores over the last 2 years at Grambling State. Look, my only prerequisite for small school guys, dominate the competition. That's the first thing. If you do that, then we can talk. You don't do that, we have nothing to discuss. He did that at Grambling State, helped them win a championship in their division a season ago. Special teams value. This is a guy that you can put back on special teams to run back some kickoffs. He did that. I don't think he's going to necessarily excel at that. I don't think he has enough wiggle for that. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But if you give him a crease, he can and he will go. Okay, but if you're asking him to make someone miss, I don't think that's down his alley. Now, he will run guys over. He's very physical. Like I said, he's one of those guys, yards after the catch, he's looking to put his shoulder down and run you over more so than run around you. But if you're talking about him busting off a big return and juking a guy out in space and then running away, I don't think that's in his repertoire. But he can offer you some special teams value if need be. As you go to his cons, very stiff hips with limited wiggle, and I think he's a build-up speed guy, like I mentioned earlier. So let's attack all of these quickly. He's got stiff hips, so I think that affects him as a route runner a little bit when he sinks his hips, comes back out of breaks. Sometimes I think it's a little lazy. It's a little tough for him to make those sharp cuts coming out of breaks. Again, that could be a problem at the next level. He was able to get away with it because he was at Grambling State. Now you bring that to the next level where these corners are very astute, have great movement skills. That stiffness may come back to haunt him at the next level. Limited wiggle. Along with those stiff hips comes a guy that's not going to shake anybody out in space. When he gets yards after the catch, it's usually via a stiff arm, usually via him running someone over, or usually via him just catching the football and outrunning the defender. But it's not usually him putting a move on a guy out in space. So limited wiggle with those tight hips. And then finally, he's a build-up speed guy. I don't think he's a guy that goes from 0 to 100 real quick. I think he's a guy that needs 5, 6, 7 steps to get to top speed. But once he gets there, he's a handful and a big problem for guys to keep up with. And then you go to his next con, contested drops. I feel like he could take his game to the next level if he can find a way to come down with the ball where he is tightly contested. There's a defender draped all over him, and he's got an opportunity to come down with the football. I'd like to see him do that. Now, it's a different story, and we're more so talking down the field, but you also see it sometimes, in the intermediate routes. But a lot of times you're talking down the field. He's got a chance to make a big play. A defender's there. He's not looking, maybe face guarded, but he's got the football, and he doesn't come down and secure it. I'd love to see him be a little bit stronger with the football. He can catch it in traffic, but I'd like to see him come down with the contested catches a little bit more often. I think those drops in contested situations are the separation between good, great, and elite receivers in this league, along with the ability to get deep and get yards after the catch. right now, I think he's lacking in that contested catch department. I want to see him improve that part of his game. And then finally, the last two, level of competition and off the field issues. I'm not going to really beat him up for level of competition. He dominated the competition. It is what it is. But the off the field issues was something that I think plagued him and had some teams maybe a little afraid to maybe take him this early. Was found outside of the LSU campus in his car with weed and guns. So you don't really know what you're getting, what type of young man you're getting here. Look, 80% of the league, I'm convinced, smokes weed. However, don't get caught doing it. And probably another 40% of the league has guns. Again, don't get caught with your guns, especially if they're not registered. So again, these are all things that I'm pretty sure the Cardinals did their homework, their due diligence. They vetted him. They feel comfortable. You're going to spend a third-round pick on a guy. You probably delved as deep as you needed to into these situations to make sure you're getting a guy that's going to remain clean for you on and off the field. And so in the third round, 98th overall selection, Grambling State wide receiver Chad Williams for me is a triple. I went back and forth as to go double or triple because of the off the field, the smaller school. And there's so many qualities I like with this guy. And the thing that tipped me over into the favor of the Cardinals and Chad Williams in this triple is the success that this organization has had with the smaller school receivers, whether it's J.J. Nelson a year ago or a few years ago with John Brown. They seem to get it right with these mid-round, smaller school wide receivers. And I think they may have done it again here with Chad Williams. You go to the fourth round, 115th overall selection, Pitt offensive lineman Dorian Johnson is the selection. 6'5", 300 pounds, big guy. And we're going to talk about that right away as we get to his pros. Size and length. Okay, this is a guy at 6'5", 300 pounds. That's really good size for a guard. Again, I like my guards to be very athletic, mobile, and be able to move. That's what this guy brings to the table. But I still want you to carry that weight. And also, he's got length to match 35-inch arms. You're talking about tackle arms, a tackle frame at the guard position, which is going to bode well for a guy like Dorian Johnson. Tremendous short area movement skills. This guy pulled a ton at Pitt, and he had a nice little shuffle step that he would use to get out of his stance, to get around the center and get into that pulling motion. And he was very, very good at getting out of his stance and getting up the field and getting to that second level and escorting the back to the second level. And so I think he has really good short area quickness and movement skills. 30-inch vert and a 9.5 broad were among the best along the offensive line at the combine. So again, this guy's showing you what he brings to the table from a short area burst and explosion standpoint. Very efficient movement skills from a guard that is able to get out in space in short areas. To me, excels as a puller. That's the next pro. Again, they pulled him a ton at Pitt. I thought he responded very well by getting out of his stance, getting into the pulling motion, and getting up the field to lead the way for those running backs and even the quarterback or even the tight end on a shovel pass. They had a very creative offense at Pitt, and guys like Dorian Johnson helped them be creative and pick up huge chunks of yardage with his ability to get out and pull. Good on the double teams. He does a really good job of double teaming along with the tackle, with the center, and then getting off that double team and getting to the second level. Again, when you get big runs out of the run game, when you get big plays out of the run game, a lot of times it's offensive linemen getting to the second level. And you got to be good off that double team. You got to know when enough is enough, when to say when, and get to the second level and get in on another block. And he does a really good job of doing that. He's a second level seek and destroyer, one of those guys. And when he gets to the second level, he's looking for work. He's not out there as a wanderer. He's looking for work, and he's going to locate some, and he's going to go get him some. And those are the guys that help you pick up big yards in the run game. Anchors well. Those long arms, those 35-inch arms, they really do him some justice. It allows him to keep guys at bay, but when they are actually able to get into his chest, he does a great job of anchoring down, putting those sandbags down, and stopping the momentum of the defensive lineman and giving the quarterback a nice, healthy pocket to step up in and deliver the football. Nathan Peterman really benefited from having a guy like Dorian Johnson in front of him, keeping the pocket clean. Assignment sound. To me, Dorian Johnson just does his job and does it at a very high and efficient level. These are the types of guys you need along your offensive line. Guys that you know aren't going to make too many mental mistakes. Guys that are going to do their job. They're going to locate the blitzer. They're going to get off of that double team, get to the second level. Guys that aren't going to make too many mistakes. Assignment sound. They know their job. They do it and they do it well. These are the kinds of guys that help you build a strong, solid foundation up front along your offensive line. And then durability. To me, the best ability is durability, especially along the offensive line, something the Cardinals haven't had the most success and luck with over the last 4 or 5 years with their offensive linemen. This is a guy, 40 straight starts at Pitt. And again, durability far outweighs any other ability, because you can be the most talented guy in the universe. If you can't stay healthy, you're not going to last in the National Football League. As we get to his cons, to me, he needs to sustain blocks a little bit better. He does a really good job of getting the guys, but sometimes I think he lets them go too soon or doesn't sustain the block altogether. And just think he needs to be a little bit more physical, stay engaged with these defenders long enough to allow the ball carrier to do what it is that they need to do. Sometimes I think he can be a little bit too finesse when he gets to these guys, especially at the second level. I don't think he does a good job of necessarily sustaining his block. And it doesn't take much at the second level. So a guy gets ahead of steam, gets to that second level. You just need to hold your block long enough for him to penetrate that first wave of defenders and get past you. And it always helps when you define a clear cut lane off of your block. Turn a guy one way or the other and make it easy for your running back to know, okay, I need to cut off of this block this way to pick up the yardage. And then he can be a second level wanderer at times. I know I said he was a seek and destroy guy, but sometimes he'll get to that second level, and I want him to be more aggressive. I think this kind of ties into him and not sustaining blocks. I'd like him to be a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more nasty, especially at the second level. I think he does a really good job initially at the point of attack, but it's when he doesn't have work. And really, and this ties into the next con. As a guard, go get work. So he can be a second level wanderer at times. And then there are times when, as a guard, you don't have anybody to block. You know, you're sitting out there and you're doing your little arms extended thing and you're looking around to make sure no one's coming. Okay, once you identify that there's no green dog and there's no immediate threat, go get somebody. Go help your center. Go help your tackle. Go be a part of the action. Don't just stand there and do nothing. Go get some work. And sometimes I think he'll just stand there and other guys are maybe struggling with someone, or there may be a blitzer coming off and a running back may be struggling. Go get somebody. Go get some work. But I love what Dorian Johnson potentially can bring to the table for the Arizona Cardinals. This, to me, could be one of those guys that helps solidify your line up front. Carson Palmer, not getting any younger, needs to be protected. He's a sitting duck back there in the pocket. And you're going to need to really have the infrastructure of an offensive line for whomever ends up being your quarterback in the near future. And this is a guy that I think is going to be a part of that infrastructure. In the 4th round, 115th overall selection, Pitt offensive lineman Dorian Johnson, for me, is another triple. I really like what I saw from him at Pitt. I really think this is a quality offensive lineman that's going to come in and be one of those stalwarts and mainstays of your offensive line for the next few years to come. As we move on to the 5th round, 157th pick overall, Vandy offensive lineman Will Holden is the selection. So they go back-to-back offensive lineman picks. And this is a guy that is huge, 6'7", 311. Start there with this size as his first pro. There's a big man we're talking about here at 6'7", 311. Good fundamentals. I think this is a guy that is really sound, upright, erect, does a good job of putting his hands out and extending them, trying to contact the offensive lineman first. Good little punch that he has, or defensive lineman, I should say, that he's trying to contact. Good little punch that he extends. Moves his feet okay, not great. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But I think he makes up for what he lacks in foot quickness with just really good technique. He's really sound in what he's doing. Good base and stiff punch is the next pro. And I pretty much just said that he has a really good base and a stiff punch that really puts guys on their heels and keeps them at bay. Again, not the fastest guy in the world, but what he lacks in foot quickness makes up with solid fundamentals and technique. Creates movement in the run game. Thought he really did a good job on these double teams of washing down the line and really sealing off the edge. When he would contact a guy, he does a really good job of sustaining. Unlike Dorian Johnson, who sometimes doesn't sustain his block as well, he does a really good job of sustaining his block. Sometimes by means that could draw the yellow hanky at the next level, but nonetheless, he's one of those guys that's going to stay engaged with his man. Anchors well. Another one of these guys that can absorb contact and dig his heels into the ground and stop the movement of the defensive lineman so that the pocket doesn't collapse on the quarterback. 37 consecutive starts to finish his career at Vandy. Again, durability is the best ability you can have, especially along the offensive line. So you go from those pros to his cons. He's not a great athlete at all, and that kind of ties into the next con, which is his feet aren't quick enough to stay at left tackle. I think this is a swing tackle at the next level, a guy that is on the roster and on the active game day roster because he can play both left and right tackle, but you would prefer to keep him at right tackle if all possible because he's not the quickest with his feet. I saw him run into some trouble against some rushers, especially against Tennessee. I watched him run circles around him because his feet just simply weren't fast enough to keep up with the action. And then what you get with a guy like this is when those feet aren't fast enough, you start overcompensating by opening up your hips out of your stance quicker. And what that does is it gives that free run inside, which is worse than getting beat to the outside, because at least if a guy beats you off the edge, if they don't shorten that corner and you're able to maybe recover, the quarterback steps up in the pocket, he can still deliver the football. You give a guy a free run on the inside because you turned your hips and opened up too soon, and he goes inside, there's not much your quarterback's going to be able to do. And so he's not quick enough to recover if he gives up the inside because he turned outside too quick to overcompensate for the lack of foot speed. So he's a guy that I think you'll be more comfortable with on the right side of the offensive line. But again, I think he's going to be one of these guys that I don't know if he'll ever be a starter per se, not at least by choice. It may be by force, but he's a guy that may be able to hold it down for you as a swing tackle on your roster. And then finally, his arms are shorter than expected. You hear a guy 6'7", you're thinking he's going to have 35 like Dorian Johnson. He's 6'5", but 35-inch arms. You're thinking the guy 6'7", yeah, he's going to have about 35, 36-inch arms, no less than 34-inch arms. This guy's got 33-inch arms. So 6'7", 33-inch arms, that's a little disproportionate, not what you're looking for in a tackle that big. So again, another reason why I don't think teams would be really comfortable with him being on the left side, but more so on the right side. So we'll see what happens with Will Holden. But I think this is a guy that's a quality pick late in the draft. In the 5th round, you get Vandy offensive lineman Will Holden as a double as your 157th pick in the 5th round of this draft. As we move to the 6th round of this draft, and this is one of those value picks here. 6th round, 208th overall selection, North Carolina running back TJ Logan is the selection. The first pro, speed. Okay, pure unadulterated speed from this guy, 4.37 speed. This guy can run, and his acceleration is the next pro. And the perfect clip, there's one particular play against Florida State, if you watch him early in that ball game, in the 2016 game when North Carolina went on the road and upset the Seminoles in that ball game. There's a run early off to the left side of the field, off tackle, left side. He gets a carry and he hits a seam. And there are defenders right there with the angle, with an opportunity, and he runs literally by almost everybody. The last guy is able to get a hand on him, and get him down on the ground. If not for that last defender, he literally was running by every single defender, and they all had angles. And you see the burst and acceleration on that one particular play, and that tells you all you need to know about what this guy potentially could bring to the table at the next level. Patience to the hole, explosion through the hole. That's always been the saying. Patience to the hole, explode through the hole. And this is one of those guys that does that. Does a really good job of setting up his blockers, allowing them to do their job and their work, and then exploding through holes once they appear. He has toughness. He's one of those guys, even though he's 5'9", 196, his stature doesn't suggest that he should be lowering his shoulder and finishing through contact, but that's exactly what TJ Logan is doing. And if you ask me, of the two backs, he was the more dynamic and at times more physical than Hood, his running back mate in the backfield at North Carolina. So this is a guy that to me displays a lot of toughness despite his smaller frame and stature. Excellent in pass pro. Again, another one of these traits that you really don't expect from a smaller guy, but yet he was the one sticking his nose in there time and time again, putting his body on the line, whether he was cut blocking or just physically throwing all 196 pounds of his body at a defender and giving Mitchell Trubisky the time he needed to get rid of the football. TJ Logan, to me, is a really good guy to have on the field in third down situations. Now, you have one of the best all-purpose 3-down backs in the entire league, so I don't know how that benefits this team, but even David Johnson needs a break every now and again, and this is the guy that can maybe spell him in some third down situations, which leads me to my next pro. Third down back. I think he's a tremendous 3-down back, or third down back, excuse me, at the next level. Can catch it out of the backfield, great in pass pro, and also a guy that can run it out of the shotgun, run the football a little bit in between the tackles, more so outside of the tackles, but he can run it in between the tackles as well. So to me, really good third down back to come in and spell DJ at times. And then finally, all-purpose monster. This was a guy that did a little bit of everything at North Carolina. 12 total touchdowns a season ago, and this is something that he did and made a habit of over the last couple of years of his career at North Carolina. Touching the football in a number of different ways and scoring touchdowns in a number of different ways. And he can impact the game in a multitude of ways. 12 total touchdowns in 2016, 7 of them coming via the rush on the ground, 3 more coming as a pass catcher out of the backfield, and 2 coming from kickoff returns. So this is a guy, and North Carolina had one of the best return games in all of college football. They were great in the punt return game, just as good as at the kickoff return game. And TJ Logan was the guy benefiting from that as a kickoff returner. So you're talking about a guy with 12 total touchdowns last year in 3 different ways. So he's an all-purpose monster. Well over 1,500 yards of all-purpose yards for TJ Logan. So again, a guy that just can do a little bit of everything, which is what you can use in that Cardinals offense. He go to his cons now. Size being the first of them. 5'9", 196. I'm not going to harp on it because, again, he's not going to have to come in and be a 3-down back for you. That's why you got DJ. But you want to extend the life of his career, you're going to need some other guys to come in and spell him. And a guy like TJ Logan may be able to do that in certain situations and also help you in a number of different ways. Like I said, being an all-purpose guy. But the size, you got to be careful of how often you use him. He isn't like DJ, who's probably around 230 pounds. This is a guy that is more along the lines of 200 pounds and at 5'9", not the biggest guy in the world. So you just want to make sure you use him correctly and allow him to help you and not be on the sidelines with injuries. Not dynamic between the tackles and lacks wiggles. I think this is a guy that it does his best work when he's outside in space. When he's in a confined, tight space like in between the tackles, I don't think his vision is all that great. I don't think he's a guy that is able to get in and out of traffic. He's not going to make a lot of guys miss in the hole, so the wiggle really isn't there. He's a straight line speed guy. So you give him some space, look out, this guy can make it happen. But if you're asking him to make guys miss, he's not a guy that's fluid in his cuts, that's going to make a cut and not lose stride. In order for him to make a cut, he's going to have to slow down and de-accelerate or decelerate. And so I don't think this is a guy that necessarily has enough wiggle to be an impact guy in that realm. So I think he is more productive outside the tackles than he is in between the tackles, because again, he's not going to make a lot of guys miss. He lacks wiggle. And finally, ball security. I don't think it's that big of an issue, but I did see him fumble right around the end zone versus Virginia. Again, you just want, if this guy's going to touch the football as a pass catcher, as a running back, potentially on kickoffs, you want this guy to put the football away, and sometimes he can be a little loose with the football out away from his body. All I ask that if you're 5'9", 196, you protect the rock. Really, I don't give a damn how big or how small you are. The goal and objective is always to protect the rock. But you being a smaller guy, taking some shots sometimes, and you know this is the guy that I said displays toughness, will put his shoulder down. You need to make sure you protect the rock at all costs. So ball security needs to be of the most high importance for a guy like TJ Logan if he wants to see the field. So in the 6th round, 208th overall selection, North Carolina running back TJ Logan for me is a double. I really like this pick. This is a really quality pick. It is a guy that can come in and really help this Cardinals team in a number of different ways. And I think he could be more of a new Andre Ellington on this roster, a guy that can come in, kind of spell DJ, do some things on special teams, maybe catch the football out of the backfield, and really add another element to this Cardinals offense from the running back position. And then finally, the final pick in this Cardinals draft, 6th round, 208th overall selection, Auburn defensive back Jonathan Rudy Ford is the selection. Athleticism is the first pro, 4'3", 440. He's an ex-running back in high school and a damn good one. So got some carries at Auburn, does a lot of things. The athleticism, without a doubt, is definitely there. And I think that 40 time coupled with the athleticism is what got him drafted. You run a 4'3", 440, you put a little bit of quality tape on film, and all of a sudden now you're a guy that finds yourself as a 6th round selection in the NFL draft. Physicality, this is a guy that put up 2 1/4, 20 times. So again, you see a guy that's physical and you see it on tape. He comes down and he hits, and I love the way that he wraps up. And he's patient also as another pro. This is a guy that really takes his time, slow plays, he's very methodical. He's not in a rush. I talked about Budda Baker, how he's just hair on fire every single snap. But this is a guy that's the polar opposite. He's really trying to kind of stake everything out, really see what's going on and probes before he goes and he strikes. So he's a lot more methodical in his approach. And again, there's something to be said about that. A guy that's patient is going to stay at home. He's not going to chase the cheese and go after the bait. He's going to stay at home. He's going to do what he needs to do to make plays. Sometimes it's to the benefit, sometimes it's to a detriment of a defense, but there's something to be said about Rudy Ford's patience. I think that's something that is a pro for him and not a con. He's a form tackler that gets results. I love the way he comes up. He's the ideal wrap and drive football player. That's what you're looking for. Technique, going up soundly, wrapping a guy up, head on the right side, and driving them down to the ground. I think he does a phenomenal job of coming up. And again, this is where that patience come in. When you come up to a ball carrier patiently, when you come up under control, it allows you to break down, form, wrap, tackle, and drive a guy and get him down on the turf. And that's what Jonathan Ford does well. Solid ball skills, 5 career interceptions. He's still very, very raw as a defensive back. And I think he can get even better in that department, but he can catch the football. If he locates ball, he can catch it and make a play on the football. Versatility, to me, he does a number of things on the football field. He can play safety, back as a cover 2, half of the field safety. I don't think he's even though he's got the speed, I don't think he's a single high safety. He doesn't have enough instincts for that. But he's a guy that can play safety for you. He's a slot guy, which is what they primarily used him at in 2016 at Auburn. You can find him in the slot, making his name in 2016. He's a kickoff return guy, did a little bit of that at Auburn, and also they gave him some touches at running back, which was his position coming to Auburn. So he can do a number of different things for you. He's also going to give you some special teams value as well as a kickoff return guy and as a gunner. So with that kind of speed, worst case scenario, 4.3, 4.40, you put him at gunner and you say, hey, go down there and make a tackle for me. So that's also something that he can provide for you as a late round draft choice. As you go to his cons, not a reliable slot defender, and here's why. And I take that and I couple it with the next con. No route anticipation or instincts. This is not a guy that sees things happening before they happen and can recognize and react. He's one of those guys that he's standing 7 yards off the ball as a slot, and he allows that slot receiver to eat up his cushion and run by him before he recognizes what's going on. And so they're running a corner route. They're already on his toes as they're breaking out. He's just starting to turn his hips. It's too late. That receiver's already on you and by you. Even we're leaving. You know the routine. You know the way that goes. Ball's on time. He's beat, can't defend. And he's one of those guys that will not look back for the football. That takes us to our last con. Slow transition, doesn't look back for the football. So his transition, I just kind of gave you a little bit of insight as to what I mean. But a guy will challenge him, will come off the football. They will eat up his cushion. They'll step on his toes. And then they will leave him because his transition is slow. His back pedal to then turn out and sprint, very, very lethargic. Again, this is a guy that did not play the cornerback position, did not play as a safety in high school. He was a running back. That was his main position. He probably did double as a defender, but he was more naturally a running back and an offensive weapon, which is what he came to Auburn as initially. So there's a lot of work to be done there as a slot guy. I think he could potentially have something. You're going to have to work with him. He's not ready yet. He's raw. But he doesn't look for the football when he's beat. Again, another byproduct of a guy that didn't do it for a very long time. He makes the switch at Auburn and after his freshman year. That sophomore year, he doesn't play a ton. He finally sees the field in his junior year, and then he's able to really get some work in. And they move him around from safety, which he played in his sophomore and junior year, really to the slot exclusively in his senior season. So there's a lot of transition for him, a lot of different things he was asked to do. He needs some work, but the athleticism and the raw ability is definitely there in the 6th round, 208th pick. And I think I just said that twice for both of these guys. Both of them can't be 6th round, 208th pick overall. But Auburn defensive back Rudy Ford, for me, is a double. I really like what this guy has in terms of his ability. You're going to have to work with him. Coaching is going to be paramount for him. If he's going to make your roster and be an impact guy down the road, you're going to have to work with him, and he's going to have to coach him up. But there's some stuff there. And you can't teach 4.3, 4.40. You can't teach the athleticism that Rudy Ford possesses. So that's the Arizona Cardinals draft in a nutshell. I think it was a really quality haul, especially what they were able to do early in the draft with their first 4 picks. And then I even like what they did with TJ Logan in the 6th round. So I think they did some really good things, did the Arizona Cardinals, with this 2017 NFL draft. Let's score them quickly. First round home run with Haason Reddick. You didn't go back-to-back jacks with another home run in the 2nd round with Budda Baker. Then you get 2 triples, Chad Williams and Dorian Johnson in back-to-back rounds. Then you go double to finish out the draft. So you tally everything up. 2 home runs, that's 8. 2 triples, that's another 6. 8 plus 6, 14. Then you get 3 triples, which is 6. That's 20, plus a doubles bonus on top. That makes it 22. You divide by the 7 selections made by the Cardinals in this draft, and it's a 3.14 triple for the Arizona Cardinals in the 2017 NFL draft. Solid collection of guys. We'll see what happens with the Cardinals and if they can bounce back in 2017 and make a return to the playoffs. That's going to do it for your man Louie T here on the 2017 NFL Draft wrap-up of the Arizona Cardinals. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here on the Louie T Network. I just got one question for you. Okay, just one. Who's next?